Pepsi Cola went bankrupt twice before they got it right. Caleb Radam invented a formula for the first Pepsi Cola soft drink in 1893. By 1931, Pepsi was suffering its second bankruptcy. Fast forward to 2018, the company, now called PepsiCo, reported a turnover of $62.525 billion with a market capitalization $155.9 billion. Caleb came from a well-to-do family, graduating at the University of North Carolina. In his second year at the University of Maryland studying medicine, his father's business failed. Caleb had to take a job moving to New Bern, North Carolina. His love for medicine stayed with him, and when the town's pharmacy came up for sale with no capital and no credit history, Caleb convinced the owner to sell him the business based solely on credit. The local pharmacy was more than a modern-day Boots or CVS. In those days, it was also a meeting place, and Caleb's friendly personality brought customers back on a regular basis. A soda fountain was a common feature where they served their customers soft drinks. Caleb was good at mixing new soft drinks, and sometimes, in the 1890s, he created Pepsi Cola. There has been some dispute as to whether or not the original Pepsi Cola actually contained pepsin as an ingredient. Filing for a trademark on August 28, in 1898, Pepsi Cola came into being. Taking on an assistant to manage the pharmacy, Caleb focused all his energy on Pepsi. In the first 3 months, he sold 2,008 gallons of Pepsi Cola syrup. Moving production from the drugstore into a bigger facility, B94, Caleb was selling 9,848 gallons a year. Expanding rapidly, B9010 he had 218 bottling franchises and covered at least 24 states, selling nearly 400 liters of syrup a year. And in 1915, Pepsi had assets of over $1 million. Success. War in Europe in 1914 sent the price of sugar soaring, plunging Pepsi into a loss-making business. Caleb believed once war ended, things would return to normal. Finally, when price controls were lifted, sugar prices jumped even higher, quadrupling in 2 years. Taking the decision to hedge against future price rises, Caleb bought huge amounts of sugar as prices peaked at 26 cents per pound. With a large quantity of sugar in his stores, Caleb watched the price fall back to 2 cents per pound. Losses compounded, and despite all his effort to raise capital, nothing worked. By March 2, in 1923, the Pepsi Cola Corporation was bankrupt. Caleb Radam died aged 67, unaware his beloved cola brand would eventually be a huge global success. Following the bankruptcy in 1923, creditors formed a new company and purchased all of the assets, including the Pepsi Cola brand name, trademarks, for $30,000. Following the bankruptcy in 1923, creditors formed a new company and purchased all of the assets, including the Pepsi Cola brand name, trademarks, for $30,000. This enabled the creditors to sell the business for $35,000 to Ray McGargle, who formed Pepsi Cola Corporation. Roy was a Wall Street trader who has made a lot of money. Unable to attract investors, he went on to run the business for 8 years without making a profit. Then, as so often happens in life, more bad luck arrived in the form of the Wall Street crash in 1929. No longer able to cover Pepsi Cola's losses, June 8, In 1931, McGargle filed for Pepsi's second bankruptcy. Charles G. Guth was in the candy and soft drink business. He was a wealthy man. He lost a lot of money in the 1929 stock market crash. However, Guth was a candy trader managing to take control of the candy store operator called Loft Incorporated. Loft had about 200 outlets, each with a soda fountain selling over 100 liters of Coca-Cola in 1 year. On the strength of this important business, Guth asked Coca-Cola for a bigger discount. They turned him down. Not happy, Guth retaliated by expanding into the soft drinks manufacturing, buying Pepsi-Cola trademarks out of bankruptcy. Guth already knew McGargle after he approached for helping bailing out Pepsi-Cola. Using some very creative, if not dodgy accounting, Guth managed to finance the purchase using cash he borrowed from Loft's candy stores, while keeping ownership of Pepsi-Cola separated from Loft. As part of a deal with Guth, McGargle was given shares and a salary. For 3 years, the business traded making a loss, and McGargle did not receive a penny in wages. At one particular low point, Guth approached Coca-Cola to see if they wanted to buy the business, but they turned him down. Loft candy stores were the main customer, buying half of Pepsi-Cola syrup. Problem was customers preferred Coca-Cola, and this resulted in Loft losing 30% of their soft drink sales. Coca-Cola brought an action against Guth for denying Loft customers their preferred choice of Coca-Cola, but the suit was dismissed. When McGargle took court action over non-payment of salary, it soon became apparent he could put Pepsi back into bankruptcy if he pursued the action. Deciding on a more pragmatic solution, he agreed to sell his own Pepsi-Cola shares back to Guth for $35,000. Guth, who was personally broke, borrowed the money once again from Loft. Had McGargle hung and for longer, he would have been a lot richer. Hampered by a lack of brand recognition, in 1934 Guth took a radical decision. Recognizing he was unable to compete head-to-head, he went for better value by selling Pepsi-Cola in 12-ounce bottles at the same price as Coca-Cola's 6.5-ounce bottle. The result was a huge success. Sales expanded rapidly. Needing more space, Guth converted one of Loft Inc.'s warehouses into a bottling plant. Facilities belonging to Loft were hijacked to meet Pepsi-Cola's growing demand, even seconding some of Loft's employees. By 1938, Guth signed up Pepsi-Cola franchise throughout the USA, transforming the balance sheet from a loss into a $4 million profit. Problem was none of the profit benefited Loft candy stores. Guth was CEO of Loft while virtually all of his time and energy was devoted to Pepsi-Cola. To make matters worse, profit at Loft fell from $1,366,000 to $2,100 in 3 years. This ended when a whistleblower leaked to the Loft board of directors it was their cash that bankrolled Pepsi-Cola. Following a dramatic and protected court battle, Loft candy stores won control of Pepsi-Cola, and eventually the two companies merged into one business called the Pepsi-Cola Company. The story of Guth and Loft battling over Pepsi has all the making of a great TV drama. Following an interim CEO and more boardroom shenanigans, a new man called Walter Smack became president and chief executive officer of Pepsi-Cola. If Loft had not won the court action, Their profits in 1939 would have been $1.5 million. Instead, they made about $28 million. On taking over running the company, one of the Mac's first challenge was to deal with the legal battle brought by Coca-Cola for trademark infringement. Coca-Cola claimed they had won cases against other manufacturers for using the word cola. An article appeared in the press saying how Coca-Cola had won a similar case against a firm in New Jersey called Clio Cola, forcing them out of business. The odds of Pepsi getting a different ruling in court looked slim. A day after the newspaper article appeared, Walter Mack received a call unexpectedly from the wife of Clio Cola's president, Mrs. Herman Smith. She told him Coca-Cola would eventually put Pepsi out of business, the same as they did to her husband's business. Mrs. Smith then said she still had a photograph of the check handed over by Coca-Cola in settlement. Speechless by this revelation, Walter Mack, who had plenty of experience with the law, knew immediately what this meant for them. Later, in his biography, No Time Lost, he wrote, "I could hardly believe what I was hearing. My mind was racing. What Coca-Cola had done, in effect, was to buy the decision, and they had perpetrated a fraud in court by not disclosing it, making it very likely they had done this in previous settlements." Straightway, Pepsi's lawyers submitted a copy of the check as an exhibit in the trademark dispute case, asking Coca-Cola's lawyers why had Clio Cola been paid $35,000. Shocked into action, an adjournment was requested, then a meeting arranged between Coca-Cola president Robert Woodruff and Pepsi Cola's Walter Mack. Over lunch at the Walter Towers, the two men agreed a settlement drawn up on Waldorf stationery, ending the trademark dispute forever. Walter Mack could now focus on the business, and from here on the company grew fast into what they have to become to this day. By concentrating on new forms of advertising, he laid to the foundation for what we take for granted as completely normal promotions. Working with New York's Newell Media Company, they devised characters such as Pepsi and Pip, two police officers similar in style to the very popular Keystone Cops. These two cops appeared in advertisement everywhere, and the public immediately associated Pepsi Cola with them wherever they were seen. About the same time, Pepsi Cola launched what is regretted one of the most famous jingles ever writing. Nickel, nickel, later known as Pepsi Cola hits the spot. Pepsi Cola hits the spot. 12 for ounces, that's a lot. Twice as much for a nickel, too. Pepsi Cola is the drink for you. Unbelievably corny to our ears, this jingle was recorded in 55 different languages. Over 1 million records containing this jingle were produced, and the first jingle ever played from coast to coast on network radio. This jingle was huge and very popular for nearly a decade. It is hard for us to imagine just how many people choose to buy Pepsi because of this one jingle. Almost immediately, the United States government, as a contribution to the war effort, says that, followed up by quotes being set limiting soft drink companies to 80% of the sugar they had used the year before. Not to be outdone, Mac bought sugar in Mexico, converted it into a syrup, and had it delivered to his warehouse in the US. Since sugar purchased in Mexico was not taking sugar away from other Americans, Mac expected this to be expectable. They got away with it for 2 years until the government declared Mexican syrup was actually sugar and stopped the imports. Not to be defeated, Max switched strategy buying a sugar plantation in Cuba. Unfortunately, he could not import that sugar either. Ironically, the plantation was hugely profitable, earning Pepsi a lot of money. After the war ended, Walter Mack dealt with issues similar to those experienced by founder Caleb Radham. This time it was a rise in cost in general and not sugar supply. By now his business errors were compounding, and the board of directors and investors made the decision to make him chairman and appoint a new president. By now his business errors were compounding, and the board of directors and investors made the decision to make him chairman and appoint a new president. Alfred Steele, husband of movie star Joan Crawford, became the new company president. The rest, as they say in history, leading on the multi-billion-dollar business PepsiCo is today. It seems such a shame the inventor of Pepsi Cola, Caleb Radham, died believing his beloved brand Pepsi Cola was lost forever.